We're here at Streeton's Lookout, about 50 to 60 k's west of Sydney. We're on a natural rise. The area is called the Terrace, overlooking Richmond and the beautiful fertile plain down below. It's one of those big scenes that I have to try and condense down into a small board and not overwork it and not try and get too fancy. So let's see how I go. Every painting is slightly different, or in some regards completely different, and so what I mean is there's normally a different place to start on every subject. So I think with this one, with a sort of vista, it's good to know where the land ends and the sky begins. So I'm just throwing in the horizon line, and then the next main part is the primary focal point. It's actually been on my hit list to one, come out and paint out here, but also to record it as well. That's even a greater thrill and a bit of a responsibility as well to do a decent job as well. And that's always in the back of my mind as to am I going to do a decent job with the painting overall? Almost a little bit like a ocean scene, but that's what atmosphere does. It really fills the background up with blue. That's why I like to call it the power of blue. There's atmosphere right from 1 inch or 1 millimeter, 1/8 away from our eyes, right into the distance. It's just our eyes aren't sensitive enough to see it. And that's why a good trick is to actually photograph the scene and flip it upside down. Or the other one is, the old school one was to turn your head upside down without falling over. But it just helps because our brains do get conditioned and programmed to see green in a tree, yellows, reds, but it's only when we actually flip it upside down or see it more in a alternate situation that we do really realise that there's actually a lot more blue, especially in our shadows. That's where we pick it up first. And actually Procreate, the app, is a great way to see that as well. Even though, once again, being a photograph, it's going to change and manipulate things a little, but most things are just a guide. There's probably no one secret to painting other than just working as hard as you can, as long as possible, doing as many paintings, minimum 150 a year if you can. So I'm just building those values around the house there. They used to have actually quite a few different buildings along the Hawkesbury River here. There is a silo and quite a few other buildings, but they're now getting hidden behind trees, and this area, sadly, unfortunately, is actually a floodplain, and it did flood in this area not long after and before they got hit twice in a year. But there's a lot of things that happen on the river, which is always interesting. You'll always hear those noises of factories or farm people, not really factories out here, but sort of farm engines and people working away. So that's something that adds to the music of being outside. But probably the hardest one when you're working on site is people coming up to talk to you. It's nothing like being snapped out of your complete 100% focus. You're really in the zone, and someone will come up, "Oh, my auntie paints. Do you know of her work?" And normally the answer is no, but it's a lovely sentiment. But today it looks like we've got the park to ourselves, so I can just keep working away. But once again, the light will change. Normally an hour and a half, and the light will have changed quite dramatically. And the interesting part with this type of scene is that it's very easy to overwork the distance. That's why I'm aiming to understate the background, enhance the foreground. So it's promoting the foreground and demoting the background. Just aiming to get that aspect working for us. So really does help if we can really get that paint off nice and clean. That's why if you can see my palette, there's a lot of paint out, because I'm actually using the paint to neutralize and sort of semi-clean the brush before I start another paint mix. Or I can pretty well go from a dark to a light. I think in about 4 or 5 seconds. I'll normally just give the brush a quick wipe. Sometimes a little bit of medium will just help flush a little bit out, wipe that out. And if I need a nice clean, I will then use a bit of titanium white or something like that to just to neutralize. Because what spoils a good clean mix is the previous paint that I've been using. So it's a matter of eliminating that and reducing its influence on the next mix. So I've got that big area of light. Still a little worried about that hard line where the sunlight hits that shadow. So that'll take a little bit of fine tuning and work. And probably one of the important things is to never really sort of try and compare your finished painting with the actual subject, because you will most likely never be able to paint as magically as nature creates. So it's a matter of doing an artistic rendition more than anything. It's that pursuing an artistic vision, I think, is the most important part. And that's why sometimes it's easy to tighten up when we're outside, because we are tempted and feeling like we are in competition with the subject. But it's more about trying to just capture what is there and what really inspired me, I think, is the ultimate goal towards the overall sort of idea. So now it's more about thinking than actually doing, the last 10% especially. So I've gone to a smaller brush. I think this is the size 3 of the Mongoose. Okay, I think I'm finished for the day. I've got the little colour study that I was after, some of the brushwork, some of the nuances, such a picturesque scene and plain, and I've got such a marvellous vantage point. So I'll take him home, rethink it a little bit, and look at doing a bigger painting at some stage. Hope you enjoyed it. All the best. Bye for now.